With more than 6,000 small and micro-cap companies listed, if you're looking for the next apple at the earliest stage, then ChannelCheck truly is the orchard. The listed companies support ChannelCheck, so it's free for you, the potential investor, to gain access to institutional quality research from FINRA licensed analysts, advanced market data, industry reports, news, and a growing catalog of videos and webcasts. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and register for ChannelCheck so you're always up to date on what's going on at the small and micro-cap data place. Welcome to this special edition of the C-Suite series presented by ChannelCheck and Noble Capital Markets. Noble is an SEC-registered FINRA-licensed broker-dealer and the source of the equity research available on ChannelCheck. This investor forum at the World Stem Cell Summit presentation features HealthLynked, OTC ticker symbol HLYK. Following a brief overview presentation from founder and CEO Dr. Michael Dent and CFO George O'Leary, Noble Senior Research Analyst Robert LeBoyer will moderate a Q&A session. If you registered for this event through channelcheck.com, in the coming days you'll be given an opportunity to get your own questions answered by the company. With that, I am pleased to present Dr. Michael Dent and George O'Leary.
Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Dent, CEO and Chairman of HealthLynked Corporation with George O'Leary, my CFO today. We'll be talking about HealthLynked Corporation symbol HLYK, and thanks for participating and listening in. First business is we are a public company, so our safe harbor statement is here to be seen, and then our ongoing risk factors you can read from our online publications. So HealthLynked itself is a corporation that's focused on the digital healthcare market and healthcare AI. We have a number of divisions that we operate. Our health service divisions, it includes our accountable care organization and our medical services, which includes women's health, functional medicine, and physical therapy. Then our digital health, which is our primary focus, is around our cloud-based patient information network that allows efficient exchange of health information and healthcare guidance to our patient members. My background, I am the founder and former chairman and CEO of NeoGenomics Laboratories, which is a $5 billion market cap company focused on cancer diagnostics and genetic testing. I am a physician, practiced for 25 years here in Naples, Florida, and my specialty was in women's health and particularly in pelvic reconstructive surgery. I'll let George O'Leary go over his background. George.
Thanks, Mike. So my background, I was a CPA with Peat, Marwick & Mitchell before it was KPMG. I was the former vice president of operations of Cablevision Industries. I ran $125 million worth of business for Cablevision. I also headed up their integration team. And whenever we acquired companies, I would integrate them and take over the management. Then we sold to Time Warner. Then I served as CEO and president of Communication Resource Incorporated, where we grew a business from 5 to 40 million in 4 years. I was also vice chairman of Timios Holding Company, where we grew a business from 20 to $80 million and just recently sold it to a NASDAQ company for about $45 million. And my background, I graduated from Siena College. I've been working with Michael for 20 years now. I was his first executive with NeoGenomics Laboratories, and I'm the CFO and board member of HealthLynked. Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, George. Our other board members, to mention them briefly, Bob Gasparini is one of our directors. Bob served with me at NeoGenomics Laboratories, our chief science officer. Robert Mino has a background in intellectual property and healthcare. Dan Hall is a VP at Arthrex, which is an orthopedic medical device company here in Naples, Florida. And Heather Monahan was the former director and chief revenue officer for Beasley Broadcasting. Just to go over our milestones, to kind of give you an idea of the company and how it's performed over the past year. Back in Q2 of 2020, we purchased Cura Health Management and ACO Health Partners. This is our first acquisition dealing with accountable care organizations and tapped the company into traditional payer markets. I made an investment in the company in Q3 of 2020 of $3 million, and that was used to retire about $1.6 million of convertible debt that the company had on its books at the time. Then in Q3, the revenue of the company increased 59% from 2.8 million to 4.5 million with the growth of our core business. And then we acquired MedOfficeDirect in Q4 of 2020, which is a medical supply company selling products to physicians and general public consumers about 30,000 different name brand products. And for the year end of 2020, we increased our revenues 53% from $4 million to $6.1 million. And early Q1 2021, one of our investors converted $1.3 million of their debt into equity, which brought the company's net equity up to $3.6 million. We then raised $4.5 million in equity in the company in Q1 of 2020, and then we launched our telemedicine services in April of this year. So far for Q1, we reported 33% revenue growth with our net equity improvement of $8.4 million. Our plan currently is uplist to NASDAQ this year. In half the year, we have had significant revenue growth of the company and are planning to launch our direct consumer birth control program along with our telemedicine program. And then later this year, we'll be launching our direct consumer lab testing. The core HealthLynked service is a healthcare network that connects patients, doctors, and healthcare data, and then provides connectivity and healthcare guidance around that to our patient members and healthcare providers. We focus on 8 areas of healthcare where there are definitely pain points in the existing market space. There are about 1,000 different electronic health record systems in the US. They don't communicate effectively with each other, nor do they really plan to, because they are competitors in some aspect of their market that they serve. Still, about 30% of healthcare providers are not using any electronic health record systems and are on paper. Healthcare providers have become more specialized, which has led to a need for sharing patient information among multiple providers efficiently to provide quality of care. There's been an overall decrease in healthcare providers. That's been combined with an increase in patient population. So the need for healthcare and healthcare access has increased significantly. Medical errors and medical mistakes are mostly occurred by physicians not being updated on health information from the patient or forgetting information from the medical record. And then patients have limited access to oversee their medical care and information, which HealthLynked looks to provide solutions around this issue. And then the last 2, patients rely on multiple providers for healthcare guidance. A typical patient will see from 5 to 6 healthcare providers. And then polypharmacy with drug interactions, we provide guidance around this area as well. Our current market, we focus on 2 specific areas, our patient members and healthcare providers. In the patient market, they see an average about 20 patients per day in a healthcare practice. The initial pricing comes in as a free service, and then those members, the patient members can upgrade to what we call our linked membership program at $10 per year. That provides a lot of benefits, to access to their medical records, to connect to other healthcare providers, to book appointments, and now also access to telehealth services. In the physician marketplace, physicians come in and claim their profile for free, coming in network with us. They then we are providing them technology that allows them to connect to their patients more efficiently, do online scheduling, to book within the office and keep social distance. And there's a preferred program for providers that offers additional services and tools as well. Our other 2 areas of interest are going to be healthcare facilities. We're in discussions now with some hospitals about rolling out our technology, then school systems as well, where we can benefit the student body and integrate healthcare among the students and their existing healthcare providers. To give an overview of the HealthLynked network, you can view this diagram where to the far left, you'll see one patient, and they can have multiple healthcare providers that are on different electronic health record systems. That information is fed into our HealthLynked data cloud, where then we look at that information through our machine learning systems to provide direct patient guidance and oversight to their healthcare. This provides a series of specific tools to them, healthcare connectivity. It provides the patient provider connector, allowing them to call in through one number, connect healthcare providers through our routing system. Care management tools within our AI system provide personalized healthcare guidance, and healthcare algorithms, we continue to expand on those to provide specific recommendations to our members. The series of tools from this diagram you can see kind of center around our patient access hub device, which broadcasts a secure Wi-Fi encrypted network at a point of care center. Mobile application then allows them to check in remotely for their healthcare visit, maintaining social distance. And then the dashboard allows a provider to look at specific analytics around their practice performance, which can show busiest times of day, busiest days of the week, busiest healthcare provider, and provide feedback and recommendation to those patients in a practice. And lastly, we are rolling out 2 other services, our health sensor wearable device. I'll speak more on that later. And then our direct-to-consumer laboratory testing. When you look at the series of tools that we have, you can start to the left here. These are the platforms that really provide patient engagement and interaction within our HealthLynked network. Our ACO division, as I mentioned earlier, provides care management through traditional Medicare services, and we get shared savings through the governmental plans, providing our tools to keep patients healthier. Our direct consumer lab testing program will be launching initially in women's health, focusing on fertility testing and menstrual cycle mapping. Our wearable health sensor is unique. We have our own software and own app that allows us to report specific biometrics from patients with the device, including heart rate, blood pressure, O2 sat, and temperature. Our direct consumer pharmaceutical program we're launching with our DocLynk program for birth control, starting out initially for women's health. The application provides online scheduling tools for patients to book appointments with healthcare providers of their choosing. Our data analytic patient hub, our educational services through our information videos through our what's called HealthLynked University, and then medical supplies through our MedOfficeDirect program, and then DocLynk, which we launched in April, is our telemedicine platform, is starting to engage patients, and we're testing out in over our current locations before we roll it out on a more national level. Then, of course, our record transfer is a core of the company where we provide ease of record mobility between patients and healthcare providers. Then our women's health application, Oohvie, providing menstrual tracking application that incorporate into the healthcare platform. When we look at our DocLynk platform, the technology is very specific, allowing a patient to book an appointment with their existing healthcare provider or allowing them to book with one of our providers within our own locations here. Those appointments can be booked out in the future, or they can be real-time, booked in 30 minutes at the request of the patient. The core technology within a medical practice focuses around 3 areas. One is our patient access hub, the device here you'll see to the far right, that provides a secure Wi-Fi network connection through mobile device technology for both Apple and Android devices. Then the QwikCheck application allows, once the patient selects the provider being seen for that day, sends an alert to the front desk, and they can notify the patient back to their appointment through buzzing the device or through SMS messaging. Then lastly, the practice analytics provide oversight into the practice performance and how key providers are doing, and patient engagement tools to keep them on track and follow up at appropriate visits. Our direct consumer lab testing program will, as I mentioned earlier, focus on women's healthcare starting out, but we look to provide certain specific tools around how patients can check their laboratory testing at home through either finger stick blood samples, saliva, or urine. The wearable health sensor, as I mentioned earlier, will be sold to patients through our website and also through our participating healthcare providers at their office locations. When we look at how we engage our patients to the far left in the light green and our physicians to the darker teal to the right, just walking through that, we provide a series of social posts through Facebook, digital ads with Google and SEO. Our applications that are out there in the Apple Store and Google Store provide ways to send push notifications to them through our COVID tracker application, the HealthLynked Core application, the Oohvie application, now our DocLynk app. Their discount programs provide medical services, medical supplies, and connections for healthcare providers. Email marketing is performed on a regular basis, and then referral programs and partnerships, we're in place of putting some of those that we'll be launching probably later this year that'll be significant to the company and progressing its vision and mission. On the healthcare provider side, we target physicians directly through our hub device and core services. Our ACO partnerships allow us to interact with thousands of patients through their care management programs. Our online directory has over 880,000 physicians across the entire U.S. Pretty much every physician in the U.S. is in our directory. And then our referral programs, we're building some unique programs that can allow patients and providers to refer other healthcare users into the network. Then lastly, our call routing systems called CareConnect and RE will allow patient intake and medical information updates through a voice to text system. In early 2000, we launched our COVID-19 tracker application. We had over 4 million downloads in 8 weeks, about 8 million total downloads of the application all across the United States, which allowed HealthLynked to become the first truly global healthcare network. The app was unique. It allowed updates every 30 minutes. It provided real-time reports, real-time chat, and brought in users from all around the world. In our health service division, Naples Women's Center, which is a women's health service, their revenue has grown 20% during the COVID-19 pandemic, use of telemedicine service in our core application. So for the last 12 months, revenue has gone from 4 to 4.8 million. We used the women's health service to test a lot of our tools and applications into their practice location before we launch them out to the general public. With that, I'll let Mr. Leary pick up on the financial overview and capitalization revenue of our operations. George.
Thank you, Mike. First, so our common stock outstanding, we have 220, just under 229 million shares outstanding. Our fully diluted is just over 300 million outstanding. Dr. Dent owns 37% of the common shares, and I own just under 2%. But Dr. Dent also has preferred shares, which gives him about 70% voting right of the company. Next slide. Over the last 12 months, from 12 months from December 2018, we went from 2.2 million to 4 million to 6.1 million for an increase in revenue of 171% over the 2-year period. Next slide. So our quarterly revenue growth for the Q1 19 to Q1 21, we went from 465,000 to 1.3 million to 1.7 million for a 284% quarterly growth rate. On the balance sheet side, as of the end of the first quarter of this year, we had cash in the bank of 3.3 million. We had debt of $450,000, which is 30-year SBA loans that we received during COVID. On the balance sheet, there was also PPP debt, but in the second quarter of this year, we got that waived for reducing the debt by $645,000, and that's so not reflected in what I call the debt amount. And our net equity was 6.2 million at the end of the quarter. One of the key milestones of that is it checked that box for uplisting to NASDAQ of $5 million of net equity. And it was an $8.4 million increase in net equity from last year at the same time to this year. Next slide. So we'll talk about recent acquisitions. We'll go over them quickly. We've actually done 3 acquisitions in the last 18 months. Cura Health Management and ACO Health Partners was one of our recent ones, and then MedOfficeDirect. I'll go through very high level some of the details and move quickly on those slides, Michael. So at Cura Health Management, we paid 1.75 million in total. We paid cash up front, shares up front, and a 4-year earnout for that. Their revenues for 2019 for 2.1 million and 600,000 of net profit. Next slide, Mike. So MedOfficeDirect, virtual distributor medical supplies, both for the physician practices and for patients. We paid total of 6 million, but most of that was in the earnout piece. We paid 0 cash. We paid it in shares, and then we have a 4-year earnout for that. Revenues of 1.2 and a break-even profit business. Go ahead, Michael. So when we look at some of the peers compared to HealthLynked on the multiples, so we look at ZocDoc. ZocDoc just recently raised 150 million off of about a $96 million revenue stream for 21 times revenue. Teladoc is trading at 29 times revenue with a $23 billion market cap. On the private side, Aledade, which is the largest ACO, accountable care organization, they now have a $2.1 billion valuation, about 26 times revenue. And GoodRx, which has telemedicine and discount prescription, which ties to our medical supply business, trades at 30 times revenue with a $14 billion market cap. HealthLynked, we have a $145 million market cap with a 12 trailing month revenue of 6.6 million for 22 times revenue. So when you look, we're very comparable with all of our other peer group in the marketplace. Next slide. So in conclusion, we have a strong management team with a background in taking an OTC company to NASDAQ that has a current market cap of $5 billion. NeoGenomics Laboratories, that symbol is NEO. We have an aggressive acquisition strategy where we're acquiring digital healthcare companies, MSO, ACOs, virtual medical suppliers. We've done 3 acquisitions in 18 months with a current plan to uplist to NASDAQ in the second half of this year. We have our patient access hub, which is patent pending, connecting patients and physician practices, providing free Wi-Fi to patients at their practices, and driving thousands of new physicians and millions of new patients over the next 5 years. Our COVID-19 tracker, we had 6 million downloads in 12 weeks, the #1 trending medical app in the Apple Store for the month of March 2020. Our telemedicine DocLynk, we just launched it in the end of April of this year. And digital healthcare space is a great space to be in with 10 to 30 times revenue multiples and $60 billion in US market opportunity. So we invite you to come join us and invest in HealthLynked. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. It was very interesting to see your strategy and the way you're developing this business. One of the things that you discussed was the revenue growth, and the first quarter had very strong revenue growth of about 33%. How does it look for the second quarter and the balance of the year?
So right now, Robert, we're estimating that we're at about a 50% growth year over year. That's being led mostly by our health service division, functional medicine, and so it's looking very positive there. Our telemedicine is just launching, so we're expecting that to be a really big driver for our revenue going forward. But that'll take a few months to really pick up as we start to lay in the foundation for that. But definitely on track and growing from where we were before.
As these different divisions start to get traction and grow, are there any particular milestones or metrics that you would see that we can use to track the growth or see how things are going?
Well, there's a number of areas that we look at. Of course, our network growth, which is in our patients' growth, and our providers are big parts of that. So we've been seeing a lot of patient growth, as we mentioned in the presentation. COVID was a big part that accelerated that. We had not anticipated that, and we had focused mostly in the U.S. on our patient growth, mostly in Florida. We had about 500,000 patient users in Florida, and then that accelerated to about 8 million users worldwide. So that we're still catching up with, and part of the uplisting is to raise some capital to monetize that. From the providers side, we're definitely back to putting out our technology and our office locations. That stopped for about a year with COVID, and we focused on the other applications. So we expect that to start to grow rapidly as well, with an internal team that's been doing really great work on introducing that to physicians across the country.
And you spoke a bit about telemedicine and its launch in April. Could you give us some additional details on how it's progressing and what you're looking forward to?
Yeah, so our model, if you look at competitors out there, let's take Teladoc, for example, which is the primary one. Teladoc has a couple of models. One is they deal with employers and providing services and payers. And then they have another model that deals with the consumer, where they can book with a physician anywhere within 30 minutes. Our platform follows a similar approach. We have the ability for physicians to use our technology that we built custom for our platform, integrates completely into the HealthLynked network. So there's no third-party vendor that was used for that. And then they can also, if that physician is not available, see one of our providers that we have here at our corporate office. They'll be available. So we've hired a few of those providers already, and we're going to leverage our existing infrastructure as we start out with, and we're going to focus on women's health care because we think that's really an unmet need. If you look at Teladoc, they offer no specific women's health services. It's really mental health, primary care, and then they have some nutrition counseling and other areas of focus.
And in part of the financial discussion, you pointed out that net equity had improved by 8.4 million over the last 12 months. And could you just discuss how that impacts the business and your strategy going forward?
Sure, I'll take that one, Michael. So one of the great things about our net equity improvement is that we virtually have no debt. We have $450,000 worth of SBA loans that are 30-year loans with 3.75% interest rate. So instead of spending our time figuring out how we're going to pay back our convertible debt, we've gotten rid of all of our debt. Obviously, number two is that with that $8.4 million improvement, it led us to $6.2 million in net equity, which between that and we also, Robert, did a $50 million shelf registration just recently for our business as well. So between the shelf registration of $50 million and our net equity where it is, it puts us in a great position for the second half of 2021 for our planned uplisting to NASDAQ.
Speaking of the planned uplisting to NASDAQ, do you have any expectations as to when it's going to be, other than second quarter, early, late, or just as determined by the business and the markets?
Yes, not second quarter, but second half of 2021, we plan to uplist to NASDAQ. What I would say is what our strategy is, we've been doing acquisitions. We did 3 in the last 18 months. Our plan is to do 1 more acquisition and then look to uplist to NASDAQ. So probably in the late third quarter, early fourth quarter, but definitely we plan to uplist before the end of this year.
Okay, and speaking of the second quarter, is there anything going on in the second quarter that helped to improve the net equity?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier in the presentation, our PPP loans, when we took the PPP loans, we followed all the procedures. We used it for payroll and rent. That was specifically what it was intended for. So we got all of that $645,000 waived in the second quarter. So between that and we raised about $300,000 of equity in the second quarter. So just under $1 million of additional net equity that'll help the balance sheet for the second quarter after our losses, our normalized quarterly losses.
Okay, and speaking of your quarterly losses, could you discuss the loss of $7.8 million and how much of that is cash, your expectations going forward for burn rate and any kind of full year financial metrics?
Sure. So very interesting. So the loss obviously seems very large, but the lion's share of the majority of that loss actually came from, Michael mentioned earlier in our timeline, how our long-term debt holder actually converted their debt to equity in January of this year, about $1.3 million of debt. So the conversion of debt into equity and then our strong financial performance. So our stock went from about 11 cents a share at the beginning of the year to the end of the quarter, it was about 70 cents a share. So a significant 500% increase in our stock price during the first quarter. So that accounted for a non-cash loss of about $5.8 million. So the lion's share of that loss really is driven by our great stock performance for the first quarter and into the second quarter of this year. Our normalized cash burn for the company over the last 4 years is about $2 million a year of cash burn for the business. So we burn some money, but it's not for everything we've developed and created from a development standpoint. $2 million a year is a pretty good use of capital for our investors financing money.
Yes, and your point that these are non-cash charges and the actual use of cash for operations is quite different. So that's one of the details one has to look at to really get a sense of what you've been building here. And you had also released the virtual format of your Future of Healthcare Summit. Could you speak about that and discuss that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Robert. So, HealthLynked's mission is to improve healthcare for our patient members across the globe. And part of that is education. And it's a big part of educating our members to make sure they know what's happening in healthcare and where they can get the best treatment and get educated. So HealthLynked has what's called HealthLynked University, and we have about, I'd say 200 or so different educational videos on different topics from hypertension to diabetes and so on within HealthLynked University, where our members can watch those videos. Very similar to, I would say, maybe a TED Talk for healthcare. And with that idea, this year in March, we had our first virtual healthcare summit that was here in Naples at the Arthrex campus. So Arthrex, we're on their campus here. They were very gracious to let us use their facilities. It's an amazing location. And we brought in physicians from around the world to speak on topics including stem cells, anti-aging, hyperbaric oxygen, genomics, and cancer. And then we did an open to the public format that we had here in Naples as well, very similar to a TED Talk kind of idea. And very well attended. We actually have released that into virtual format because of COVID. We had good attendance, but COVID definitely restricted it. People didn't want to be out and about so much, so we decided to release it in a virtual format, and that's available. And then they'll be released into our HealthLynked University over the next course of 6 months or so. But we plan to hold the event every year going forward. It was such a success, and we felt like the content was so well received that it definitely is in line with what the company is looking to do in its core mission.
Michael, why don't you mention about the documentary that was created off of the summit?
Yeah. So when people heard about the summit, we had a producer director, Paul Castro, who's a Hollywood screenwriter, come in and produce a documentary around the event called LYNKed. It's in production now. But they interviewed all the physicians that were there, that healthcare experts, and they've produced a very interesting documentary that we expect it'll be out, released into the theater or into, hopefully Netflix or somewhere on streaming within the next probably 6 months, I would say. But it's a very powerful documentary about healthcare and where we are today and how healthcare and AI can impact that, and what the latest technology is.
That's totally consistent with what I saw in the slides in terms of meeting a need in the marketplace and coordinating all of these different segments.
One thing I'd add to that, Robert, is just that, we have a lot of divisions of HealthLynked we built that are really engagement tools for our patient members or healthcare providers. And all those serve a mean to connect information, and we don't share the information with anybody else. It's private to the company. And we look to provide guidance back to our members for that sharing information. So I want to really point that out. We're not selling members as an information as a commodity. We're providing services for our patient members.
Thank you for joining us for this C-Suite interview presentation brought to you by ChannelCheck. Visit our YouTube channel for more interview content, as well as virtual roadshows and conference presentation replays. New content is added regularly, so subscribe below to stay up to date. Visit channelcheck.com or click the link in the description to access equity research, news, and advanced market data on this and the 6,000 other small and microcap companies listed.